Buen día a todos. Voy a parar por acá. Les damos la bienvenida al curso de miércoles de marzo. Bueno, sí hemos recibido varios temas de las presentaciones de Acquia, y ya que Roberto Montero se ofreció, Acquia Drupal Grandmaster, o como sea que se diga, certificación. Así que nos va a ofrecer una introducción y nos va a orientar un poco acerca de la certificación. Roberto.
Muchas gracias, Kenny. La presentación la tengo preparada en inglés, así que voy a hacer un cambio ahí de caseta a inglés. Si tienen preguntas, las vemos en el Flow Doc. Como dijo Kenny, soy certificado por Acquia. Hay 4 tipos de certificación que ahorita vamos a ver. Cuando uno toma 3 seguidas en el mismo año, le otorgan un galardón adicional que se conoce como Grandmaster. Los Grandmasters son personas que tomaron 3 exámenes o más, o los 4. So first off, we have 4 different certifications you might be interested in. They go from the most basic to the most specialized. And they're for different people, different audiences. Site Builder is one that you might be tempted to take just because it's one of the simplest, it's one of the shortest, and it's also one of the most affordable. Site Builder will cost you $155, and the passing grade is answering 34 correct questions out of 50. The next one, however, that one only covers basic Drupal knowledge. So who would be interested in taking Site Builder? People that are non-technical, people that need to work with Drupal sites, but are not technical, meaning product managers, project managers, anyone that's not really an engineer. The developer test is a little bit more. It's just one notch above the Site Builder. It will run you $250. The passing grade is there's more questions, 10 more questions, and so the passing rate would be 39 out of 60. That'll get you that certification. It covers pretty much similar concepts for the Site Builder test, but it also includes 1 or 2 questions from the back-end and front-end specialist tests. Which is the perfect segue to the backend specialist. If you're interested, if you've been doing backend development for a while, at least a year or 2, and you have $350 to spare, that would probably be the one that you're interested in. It is 60 questions. The passing grade is a little bit higher. You need to score 42 correct questions to become a backend specialist certified. And it covers topics, and we'll see what those are in a minute, but it covers topics ranging from security to performance to plugins to anything Drupal related, specifically Drupal 8 in this case. The front-end specialist is, again, it's also a hard one. It's not a walk in the park, but if you've been doing front-end development for a while and you know how to do theming, sub-theming, how to implement security in the presentation layer, how to optimize the speed and performance of the site on the front-end level, this is the one you want to take. If you're only taking one, I would say back-end developers go for the back-end specialist, front-end developers go for the front-end. Getting the Site Builder, it's easy, and it doesn't really give you much credit in our Drupal community. But it does give a lot of credit to someone that's going to be maybe our interface on the client side. Having a certified project manager would look really good, because that means they know how to do menus and blocks and all sorts of things. All right, let's dig into it. And like I said, if you pass 3 in a year, you become a Grandmaster. So for the Certified Site Builder, for all of you that are non-technical, I'm going to breeze through this one because that's not the one we're interested in. The exam is going to take 75 minutes. It's going to cost you $155, and it's going to be composed of 50 questions. The pass-fail mark is 68%. That means that you need 34 4 questions out of 50 correct to pass. Or in other words, you can only miss 16 questions. It's basically for professionals that build Drupal sites that know how to play with core and contrib modules without having to create custom modules per se. It'll validate your skills, basically in areas like, can the user use features? Can it create content? Can it manage content and users? Does he know how to do content modeling, aka creating content types, reusing fields? Can he change the layout and appearance of a site using site display? And then, how does he integrate with community and contributed projects? Think about all of our clients who choose, for one reason or the other, choose Drupal, and then they suddenly have this huge ecosystem to interface with. They know they have contrib modules, they know they have custom modules that they can build, but how does that play together? How do I make it work? That's what the test is for. Who should take this test? I mean, if you're able to plan and build Drupal 8 based solutions, this is for you. If you understand best practices, code styling, if you can develop and maintain applications using Drupal sites, it doesn't mean that you need to code your own modules. But if you can download Drupal and create a few content types and suddenly have a blog up and running or a store up and running, this is what you want to. This is the test you want to go for. If you can install and configure new Drupal modules and themes, if you have some basic knowledge on how all of those interact together, that this is a test for you. And it validates, of course, that you have professional experience using Drupal. It is easier to walk into an interview or a sales pitch and say, hey, I am, Drupal certified, and I know how to use Drupal. I know how to create Drupal sites. I know how to model content architectures. I know how to create, pieces of content, use a workflow, publish and publish, schedule, and create users. It's easier to have an Acquia certification behind you than just walk in and say it and have to prove it. This one, the test formatting is going to be applicable to all 4 tests, and you're going to see this on each slide. I'm going to share this slide deck with you all, so you can review it on your own time, and especially for the people that are not here today. And so these slides are repeated on all of the 4 tests because it is assumed that you're going straight to the one you're interested in. So all the tests are multiple choice and multiple response. What it means is multiple choice is you select one option, the one option that best answers the questions or completes the statement. So they're going to say they're going to present you with a statement or a problem or just a question, like a fill in the blank question, and then they're going to present you with 4 or 5 different options, 2 of which may be correct. You have to understand. You have to know the difference. You have to know your Drupal very well and understand the difference, so you can select the one that best answers the question. As you know, if you've been doing Drupal for a while, there's multiple ways of doing things. There's usually one that's preferred because 2 options can do the same thing, but one takes into account either extra security or better performance, or it's just a best practice. So they're not trick questions. They're just they really try to validate that you know your Drupal, and even though you can identify the 4 or 5 different ways of doing something, that you know which one's the best, and you would recommend that to your client. The multiple response ones, you can select more than one option, but only the ones that answer the question or complete the statement the best. So let's see. If you're interested in the basic one, here's what your test is going to look like. You're going to get every test is composed of domains, and for each domain you have a number of questions. They're not going to come in order. They're going to be sprinkled throughout the test, but it's basically going to come to this. So when you're studying, you probably want to focus on the ones that have the most number of questions. You want to try and come up with at least twice the number of questions when you're practicing for this. So for the basic one, you're going to have a domain of understanding Drupal, and you're going to get 3 questions around that. You're going to get working with the Drupal site. That's going to ask you questions about how do I place blogs on a page? How do I limit the visibility of a blog to a certain role or to a certain page? Stuff like that. Content modeling is going to be all about content types, taxonomies, all that good stuff. Site display may be related to using context versus display suite versus panels. Site configuration is going to be all about features and the CMI for configuration management. Yeah, so on and so forth. Community and contributed projects. There should be 4 questions. I can almost tell you which ones they are. They're very specific, but it's all about how do I work in a community? How do I contribute back to this project? So there's going to be one question about you downloaded a module and it's not working the way you expected. What do you do? Or it is working as you expected, but it's missing something that your client required. So you want to either use that as a starting point or you want to make it better. How do you go about making, and you think this is a change and a contribution that other people might need or want? How do you go about it? Do you create your own version of this module? Do you talk to the owner? Do you just commit a patch and wait for the community to review it? So on and so forth. Module and theme management, pretty self-explanatory. It's going to tell you, it's going to ask you about how they interact together. It's going to ask you about weights. It's going to ask you about security, and a few other things there. And last but not least, security and performance. It is going to cover topics like how do you secure a site? What are the best practices for the use of user 1, which is the super user? What are the best practices for user 0 or unauthenticated users? It's going to ask you about permissions. It's going to ask you about understanding which permissions you're assigning to user 0 and 1 or any authenticated user for the permissions that are sensitive that allow big major changes to the site. So those are the kind of questions you're going to get. Like I said, this is basically for a site builder, a person who can put together a Drupal site without coding. It's gonna sound similar to the other ones, but it's not. I'm going to skip through this. You can see it. You can go through it if you want. Certified developer might be. This one is the starting point for anyone that's a developer. It's a good point. It's a good stopping point right now to just make a mention of. You guys are all developers. Some of you are engineers, meaning you have a training and a career behind you, and you've been trained to do engineering work, to find a problem, identify a problem, understand it, and then come up with a solution, plan a solution, and then execute the solution to solve the problem. A developer per se can be self-taught. So there's a lot of developers out there, and there's not a lot of engineers that are doing Drupal. Here is, if you're either one of those, a developer or an engineer, you might want to think long and hard about getting certified if you really like this industry and you really like Drupal. Whether you plan on doing WordPress in the future or some other CMS, or just doing something bigger and larger like Symfony or Laravel, getting certified in particular technologies shows you and the world that it just proves what you can do. So it's definitely an investment. It's an investment in yourselves. It helps advance your career. So the word certified Drupal mean a lot. So think about it while we go through this presentation. It's 90 minutes. It's a little bit longer. It's also a little bit more expensive. It'll cost you $250 to get certified, and you get 60 questions. The pass-fail mark is 65%. That means you have to get 39 right out of 60. You can only miss 21 answers. And when you're thinking about which ones you want to get, you want to focus on your strong suit and study for your weaknesses. The purpose of the test, of course, is to validate skills and knowledge. For the fundamental concepts, is going to cover site building, like we saw before. It's going to cover some of the front end development and some of the back end developer. Mostly back end, really. But this one is a balanced mix between front end and back end. This one is for those people that can do both back and front. They're not they're not scared to use jQuery correctly. They're going to be very specific questions. How do you, what is a prototype function in jQuery? How do I extend jQuery? How do I leverage an existing library for jQuery on the front end side? And for the back end side, it's going to delve into using plugins. How do I, like in Drupal 7, it used to delve a lot with hooks. Now that we have hooks and plugins for Drupal 8, it's gonna cover those as well. It's going to validate, when you have this certification, it validates that you're able to design, develop, and deploy Drupal 8 solutions, that you understand how Drupal 8 core works, and the best practices for both backend and front end. It's also going to cover, it's also going to validate that you can develop and maintain applications using Drupal 8, meaning you're not only going to sell them a site, you know how to maintain it, you know how to, if 5 months from now the site becomes slow, you know exactly where to look for clues and implement a solution for that and optimize the performance. It also validates that you're going to develop and implement new Drupal 8 modules and themes, and then you can customize and extend existing modules and themes. In terms of skills, like I said, I mean, it validates that you're a professional, that you've been doing Drupal for a while. It validates that you can set up and configure Drupal sites without problem, be it a single site or a multi-site, be it on a single server or Docker containers or anywhere. You know Drupal, you know how to set up and configure Drupal sites. That you can develop and implement new Drupal modules, that you can develop new or customize existing themes, and that you can extend modules. It is, again, multiple choice, multiple response. We've seen that. The domains, as you can see, there's a lot less domains here because it's a lot more focused. For fundamental concepts, you're going to get 6 questions. For site building, you're going to get 18 questions. So you would really want to prepare for that one. For front-end development, there's going to be 15 questions and 21 for back-end development. So for theming and coding, as you can see here, you really want to concentrate on your strong suit. If you've been doing more back-end development than front-end, study and read up on your front-end. On the flip side, if you've been doing front-end for the longest time, but you know how to use modules and you know how to put your pre-processed functions in modules or the theme and whatnot, just read up on back-end development a little bit, and you might just pass this. So here's the contents. I have 4 slides of this. So for the first domain, you're going to want to demonstrate your knowledge of HTML and CSS. This means that you do have to know, like the new components that are available to Drupal 8, the new form API components. That you also have to know how to use CSS, maybe some pre-processing of CSS like Compass or Sass. Correct HTML tagging. I mean, all of the fundamentals, really. Programming concepts for JavaScript and jQuery, meaning if you've been doing this for a while, you know why do we escape the $sign variable into the jQuery object? Why is that done? And what are the benefits of it? Basically that. How do you use other JavaScript inside your code? How do you make that script run for a particular page or across the whole site or for a particular theme? What are the difference between those? How do you use the attached attribute of render arrays, whether it's a page or a block or something else? That's going to be covered here. And then demonstrating the use of Git for version control. This is a certified developer test, so it is going to be tough. It is going to be thorough. It's not going to be mean because it doesn't have any feelings, but it is going to be tough, so you have to prepare for it. So there's going to be a question about if you have a Git conflict, how do you fix it? How do you step through? You have 5 changes, 5 new changes ahead of you, and all you know is that when you pulled, something broke, and you want to pinpoint which one broke. So it's gonna get you have to know how to navigate or step through each one of those revisions to find the culprit and fix it. So it is not just going to be about git add, git commit, git push, git pull. It's going to be a little bit more thorough than that. For site building, you're going to want to demonstrate that you can create content types, field settings. Probably want to be able to demonstrate how do you place those, how do you tweak the display modes of those content types, both in the form and view modes. Like how do you rearrange fields, how do you put them inside field sets and all that good stuff. You want to demonstrate that you're able to create and use taxonomy vocabularies, whether it's free tagging, a drop down, whether it's using entity references or term references. Basically knowledge on how to classify and organize content. By proxy, you're also want to be able to demonstrate that you can create blog types, which is the new way of creating blogs. How do you manage content in blogs? If you created an info blog that has some text and a call out, how do you use and reuse that? How do you place it in a layout, and so forth. This one is a bit of an edge case for the use of menus. I mean, there's going to be a question there about how do you build main and alternative navigation systems. What that means is it can mean a couple of things. One is if the client says I want to have this menu for my desktop but this other menu for my mobile, how do I do that, and how do I place them on my page, and how do I switch between them. But it can also mean how do I do localization or translation of menus, meaning I want my Spanish menu to be this, but my English menu to be that. So that's something you have to be prepared for. 2.6, the use of views as a concept of lists of content, and how you can do that with pages, blogs, and feeds. There's a specific one that says if you have a home page that's being populated by a view, but it also requires a feed, how do you do that? How do we ensure that the right feed is referenced from the home page and it's not obvious? And then demonstrate the ability to use configuration management, be it CMI or features. There's a little bit about features. It's not, if you recall, this is loosely based on the Drupal 7 version of this test. Features was not fully functional and operational when Drupal 8 started, so the test doesn't really delve too much into features. However, it is our preferred mechanism. It's what we do, it's what we recommend, and if you really look under the hood, it's really just a wrapper, a nice little wrapper around the CMI. So at the end of the day, features is using CMI to place configuration. Multilingual websites and core would be tested here as well, and the ability to build RESTful web applications using core web services. What this means for the RESTful pieces, as you know, headless Drupal is becoming more and more popular, so it is very common to have just Drupal as the CMS backend and have a series of RESTful endpoints that take arguments and spit out content in an organized fashion in a JSON object or similar. So this is going to cover how do you do that. There's the RESTful module in core. There's contributed modules that can do the same thing. There's serializers. There's all sorts of things for RESTful interfaces. So there's going to be questions about that. If you know what you're doing, you should be fine. For the backend development, you basically need to be able to write code. There's going to be pieces of code with a line missing that you have to fill in, or there's going to be pieces of code that have an error, and you have to identify what the error is and how to fix it. It is going to be multiple choice, so it is going to be easier to understand what the question is and what the possible solution is. But you still need to be able to read the snippet of code, understand the context, not only what's in front of you, but what could be around it. Whether it's, if it's in a hook, the code may be obvious, but it's in a hook that you see is incorrect. So that might be the right answer. You're doing this in the wrong hook, or you're trying to tamper with the variables and you're not appending to the variables array. You're just overriding it. That could be another good one. So yeah, like I said, I mean, you can go through the slides. Maybe we should focus on questions, and then you can just go through each one of these, whichever you're interested in, and we'll do some more. We'll do another one on specific tips the next time. So let's go for questions. I have one from Eduardo. Do you recommend taking Drupal 7 backend specialist, or just go ahead with Drupal 8? I would recommend Drupal 8 only because they're dated. Drupal 7 we're phasing out Drupal 7. We're ramping up on Drupal 8. So if you're going to spend $300 on a test, you might as well get the one that approves the most. And while certainly Drupal 8 is a little bit more complicated because you have to be cognizant and knowledgeable on all the Drupal topics, like plugins and all the new stuff, it also carries more value. I am Drupal 7 certified, and I'm seriously thinking about, I will take the Drupal 8 backend specialist certification. What happens if there is an upgrade from 8 to 9? That's what happened to me, I guess. I took 7, 8 wasn't around, then 8 came around, and you don't necessarily have to take the exam again and pay for it. It still holds some weight that you've taken the 7, but in this industry, if you want to be competitive and you want to win that bid or win that job that you want to get, it certainly helps. But yes, you have to take. There's no discounts. You have to take it again and pay for it. It's going to be a lot easier for sure. Claudio, hardware requirements is a really good question. Yes, you do need 2 cameras. One is going to be facing you, and one's going to be facing your keyboard. So you need to make sure that you have 2 cameras. You can also just fly out to their certification centers. They're spreading out throughout the world. If you're going to an international Drupal event, especially one in the States, like a DrupalCon or some Drupal camps, they usually set up certification centers. Whether they do the camera thing or you attend a certified testing center, it's just the same. And I'll share more on that. I just want to get through all the questions. Yep, there's 2 at the end of my slide deck. There's 2 links to do mock tests. They're not 100%. I've taken the test, and they're not 100% identical to what we've done. This is best guesses from the community. It would be unethical for anyone to put the exact same questions, even if you remember them because you've just taken it. It would be unethical to put them online. So you're not going to see exactly the same questions, but it definitely helps you practice for A, the format of the test, and B, your knowledge. And it'll, I strongly recommend going through those. It doesn't get recorded anywhere. It's not going to put you to shame if you fail. It's also not going to bring you any pride if you pass. But it's just going to be a good starting point and self-assessment to see if you're ready for the test or not, or how much you have to study. Some of you are going to be happily surprised that you're pretty much ready to take the test, and others will be a little bit disappointed and say, well, I have some work ahead of me. Andres has no questions. And Manuel, do you have multiple chances to take the tests? You can take the tests as many times as you want. They don't get recorded, they don't get shown. Only the last time you take the test is shown. When I took it, I was taking it along my co-workers for the company I was working for, and it was, some people scored 80%, or some people scored 85%, and some people really wanted to score 100. So there were talks about retaking the test just to get that score higher, but then we realized that it's just a pass-fail test. So unfortunately, if you have a coworker that passed the test with the 68% mark, which is the required, that is worth just as much as you if you pass it with 100. So don't stress too much about it. In terms of retakes, they don't offer a discount. You have to pay full price again for the tests. However, like I said, it doesn't impact you negatively. I don't think our organization, whether it's Annexus or Phase 2, is currently sponsoring any tests, mainly because this is something for you. When you think about testing, you should think about your own personal career. this is something that's going to be issued under your name. It's not going to be issued under a Nexus or Phase 2. So it's not, it doesn't really benefit any of us as organizations. However, as individuals, if your job is on the line and if we have to hire a new developer and one is certified and the other one isn't, it's certainly a guarantee that the certified one at least is able to take a good test, is able to read carefully, has attention to detail, and will probably go with that one. So we're not currently sponsoring that. When we have, or at least in my previous organization that did sponsor those, the agreement was, sure, we'll pay for that, but then you have to work for us for a year and you have to pass it. So if you fail it, we pay for it one time. If you fail it, you have to pay for it yourself, and you have to keep paying for it until you pass it. So it was a big challenge. It was a big bet with benefits. But like I said, the real ROI, the real return of investment is for you guys, the developers. If you want to stand out from the crowd, if you want to be different, if you want to be I don't want to say better, but if you want to have an easier time just proving your skills rather than having to do a practical test, this is a good way to go. Kendall has the last one. I'm not sure if it's been said already, but how often? Yeah. So yeah, like I said, I mean, you don't necessarily have to be certified every single year. Not all of us have in our plan, in our PDP, in our personal development plan, we don't necessarily have that as part of our growth plan to be certified every single year, especially because it really becomes easier and easier, right? If you've certified Drupal 7 and now you want to take Drupal 8, some of the questions are going to be the same. It's going to be a good refresher. It's going to have some of the new concepts and so on and so forth. One thing I forgot to say is from Drupal 7 to Drupal 8, there was a big gap. There was a big overhaul. Things changed, core changed. There's a lot of differences. From 8 to 9, the transition is going to be a lot easier. It kind of like Drupal 5 to 6 to 7, where it was just minor enhancements here and there, and but not a fundamental change in the paradigm, not a fundamental change in the core or the libraries that we use. So what we can expect for Drupal 9, as we know already, it's going to be a much closer integration with Symfony and other frameworks, a much closer integration with object-oriented programming. If you're doing custom Drupal backend development right now, you might have noticed that some of the functions that you want to use have a label that says it's deprecated, meaning the next big version for Drupal 9, it is going to be deprecated. That is not the right way to use that function. That function is going to disappear, and now we're going to be using the right object-oriented programming way of doing that. Okay, that's all the questions that I see right now. Is there anything else? I'm going to share this with you all. You can take your time and read it carefully. That's why the slides are text heavy, so read through them. If you're serious about getting certified and you want to get certified, I'll prepare another presentation on specific tips on how to get, how to prepare for the specific tests that you want to take. And there's at least 3 or 4 slides, or 2, I guess, slides of tips that will help you prepare for that in a general sense. Feel free to reach out to me if you have questions. I'm available on FlowDoc, and my email address. So anything I can do to help, I will. Thank you, guys. That'll be the end of that.